let's start with just a little definitional work. And this, moves around a little bit. But so baby boomers, 46 to 64, it's about 74 million of them. They're now exiting the workforce. The older boomers are exiting the workforce. Gen X, which is Julie, who got mad at me for forgetting all the Gen X's. 65 to 80 is Gen X. There's about 66 million of them. Millennials, which we talked about before, 81 to 96, about 80 million of them. And then we get to Gen Z, which is 97 to 2012. I'm not sure why they ended it in 2012, and I don't know what comes after 2012, but about 74 million of them. So, roughly equivalent chunks of 70 million-ish in each group, with the boomers retiring and the Gen Zs entering, and each at different stage in their career. They are achievement-oriented, little different than millennials. They're not quite as achievement-oriented. They grew up economically well off, and family here and how they grew up has a huge amount to do with what this generation looks like. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. They're educated on average. This was the go to college crowd, right? So that, if you go back to the greatest generation, 7% of people had bachelor's degrees, 7%. And this group is probably 50, 60% bachelor's degrees. They are highly educated, relatively speaking. They're diverse. They embrace diversity. In fact, I'd even go further. They don't even see diversity because it's so organic to them. They just that's just the way it is. They don't even, it's weird when you don't think about diversity to them. So they interviewed a bunch of Gen Zs and they said, what do you want to get from work? Number one is I want to be able to achieve results. So they are results oriented. This is an intrinsic reward for them that I get to be in a place that I can do cool stuff and make things happen. That's different than millennials. It's not number one for millennials. Opportunities for promotion, number two. So they want the opportunity to move up, frankly, move up kind of quickly, maybe more quickly than we might like them to, but c'est la vie. Because they are risk averse, benefits, retirement, important to them. These benefits are important to Gen Z because they like safety and security. Their future is important as well, though. So they are sort of forward looking. And then the last three are learning, money, and skills. They're also very idealistic. So the first thing to think about when they come on board is that they're going to have very unrealistic job expectations, partially because they've never worked before. They've never had a job. They have no idea what it means to have a job. And so setting expectations about how many hours we want, and you're going to say, Jim, these are incredibly basic. And the answer is yes. Simon Sinek talks about millennials, but it's equally applicable here. They're the result of a failed parenting experiment. We tried to protect our kids from all risk. We coddled them, Now we've created people that cannot be adults very well. So our job as leaders is we're going to have to teach them how to be adults in the workplace because they're really not ready to do this. So you have to set expectations about what the job is, how many hours you're going to work, how dirty you're going to get, what the climate and the culture is, what's the opportunity for job growth, so that, and this is before you hire them. So when they show up, they don't go, oh my God, this isn't what I expected it to be. This is completely different than what I expected to be. They're informal. They don't recognize positional power. Now, on the negative side, us boomers go, oh, pesky kids don't have any respect. Well, no, because they don't even recognize the thing that you're valuing, which is my positional authority. They don't even, they grew up not even thinking about that. Everybody's the same on the internet. The only thing, maybe some people are smarter or know more, or that's about it. But it's not about positional. So they want clear targets. They want informality. They want very level kind of organizations. So checklist, over communicate what's expected, reinforce the culture and the purpose of why we're here, are all super important with Gen Z. The other thing that they want to hear around clear communication is the why. They need to know why. You cannot just tell them to do something. You need to say, here's why this is important. Here's what it connects to. Here's where you get. Here's where the organization gets if we do this thing. So the why, when you're doing the clear communication, is a must-have with this group. Again, that goes back to the positional power. You can get away without the why when you have positional power. When you don't have positional power, which we're all being stripped of our positional power by Gen Z, we need to explain why. So, but they've been protected from failure their whole lives. So think about putting themselves in an environment where they can fail. That's anxiety inducing. Work is an environment where I can fail. I'm no longer protected from failure. My whole life, I was protected from failure. And you know, I'm saying it like it's an absolute, largely protected from failure. The other thing to think about is this is a group that can be embarrassed by feedback. So remember I talked about personal brand, personal image being how many likes I got on my post, all that kind of stuff. That's this generation. So when I give them feedback, they can get defensive because I see myself failing when you're giving me feedback. So you have to find a way when you're coaching them to make it okay to get feedback. You know, and this really is making it safe to fail. You know, it made me think about, you know, celebrating failure in a way, giving out oops awards. Hey, and starting with leadership. And that's part of the managerial technique here, is demonstrating vulnerability and how I screwed up and disclosing that to the Gen Z to make it okay to screw up and have failure. Because they go, well, dang, he or she is the boss and he screwed up and didn't get fired and he's not embarrassed and he's not hiding in shame the rest of his life. Huh, maybe it's okay to have a little failure here and there, right? So making it okay to fail is a big part of creating that safe environment for these kids. So there's a big line of the model of management is coaching and mentoring here. So you just stop thinking about yourself as a manager, start thinking about yourself as a coach and a mentor. Changing the dynamic between you and the employee is really big deal. And this emotional care thing is important. And face-to-face communication, though, they suck at. So their entire life communicating with other human beings was this. Well, I'll just text them or I'll email them. Oh, email's even old, right? They don't email, they text or they message or they whatever. They don't do face-to-face. They don't do phone. They've never been in the workforce and they've only really communicated one main channel, which they are completely expert at. They need to add other channels in a workplace, right? Mostly so they can talk to boomers, but they do need to do that. So just realize they come not knowing that basic skill of how do you write a memo? How do you communicate a complex issue via email? Management specifically. So here's the real question. Who's going to manage the Gen Zs? And the answer is millennials. So millennials are going to manage Gen Z. So it's actually not the delta between a boomer or an X's view of the universe and a Z. That's not the most relevant difference. It's the difference between a millennial and a Gen Z that is incredibly critical. And it turns out they align on a lot of stuff, but there's a couple places they don't align on, and they are important because this is where the rubbing and bumping is going to happen, okay? So they're aligned on achievement. They're both achievement oriented. They both desire ongoing development, fully aligned on that. When you tell a millennial manager you need to develop your people, she'll go, awesome, I'm all in on that, right? Job security and salary. Here's a delta. Millennials, they want purpose, they're optimistic, and they are actually risk takers at a higher level. Gen Z, they want security, they're pragmatic, and they're risk averse. So that whole thing of, hey, go take on that project. Hey, I don't know. You're making me do something I don't know how to do about before. So they're not aligned. So imagine a millennial manager saying, hey, Joe, take on this new project. It involves some machine learning, which you just have to go figure out. And and they'll go, whoa. You're asking me to do something I have no idea how to do. I'm like, now we've got a problem, right? So that's a misalignment point. Feedback is slightly misaligned. Remember we talked about millennials wanting frequent feedback, regular feedback. Don't wait for the manual review. That's like the worst nightmare for a millennial. Gen Z wants constant feedback. On teamwork, there is actually a misalignment on this one. I think we talked last time about millennials being very teamwork oriented. They seek working in teams. They're intensely collaborative. Gen Z is competitive. They want to win. They're competitive. They want to achieve. They want to get a result. So we take my highly collaborative, team-oriented manager and my competitive Gen Zer who works for her. And you can see that there could very well be conflict in that environment. And so it's just worth understanding. They want to be measured. They want to compete. They want to win. Because I think we have to coach our millennials how to manage our Gen Zs. That's really where I was going on retention. Because remember, they come for the mission, they leave for the manager. So they're not going to leave because you're a boomer and you're a little out of it because like they've all got parents. They get this, right? It's their manager they expect to really kind of get it because he or she's only 35 or 32, not that old, right? We need to teach them how to manage Gen Z. That's where the gap is, right?